As a constitutional law attorney, former senior legal advisor and personal counsel to President Donald J. Trump, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and I am so excited today to have as my very special guest, the writer and director of the Essential Church movie. This film is in theaters starting this weekend, July 28th, so you can go to essentialchurchmovie.com and see where it is playing at a theater near you. This tells the story of the pastors that stood firm and opened their church during the COVID pandemic. And it also goes through church history and the theology of why it's so important to understand that Christ is the head of the church. And so I'm going to get into some of the behind the scenes and some of the takeaway messages from the film. But I just want to encourage you, whether you are a Christian, you're maybe thinking about becoming a Christian, or you really don't have any interest at all in the church, go and see this movie, because no matter where you're at, you are going to be challenged to think about the church as an institution that God has ordained in a very different and biblical way. So I was challenged by this movie. I thought it was absolutely amazing the first time that I got to see it. And I look forward to seeing it in theaters this weekend. So essentialchurchmovie.com. Get your tickets this weekend starting Friday, July 28th. And we'll be right back with Shannon Halliday, writer-director of The Essential Church.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to your to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
So joining me now is the writer-director of The Essential Church, Shannon Halliday. And Shannon, this is such an amazing film, and I just got to see it with you and Pastor John MacArthur and the team and Grace Community Church at several premieres last weekend. And every time that I see this, it's just so well done. So how are you feeling now, headed into the weekend with the theatrical premiere and this project finally completed?
Oh, yeah, it's a relief. It's really good to hear all the positive feedback, because you're wondering if people are going to like this the whole time. And you get a good feeling about it. You're like, okay, I think I got it in a good place. I think I finally got it there, and I'm feeling good about it. But then you think, but am I crazy? Maybe other people won't think it's too hot, but we're getting great feedback. Lots of people are liking it. We're looking on social media, and what you want to happen is happening. People are saying, you need to go see this movie, and word of mouth is spreading, and like, oh man, it was so good, you need to go see this. So it's a load off my shoulders.
Yeah, and that's great, because in addition to on Sunday night, this past Sunday, premiering this to the Grace Community Church congregation, which is amazing. I mean, sitting there and actually being in the church that stood firm and stood up. That was an amazing experience, and just hearing their feedback. But also in connection with that, there were a couple hundred churches around the nation that also premiered it in their churches to kind of get the momentum going. And I know my home church was one of those churches, and the feedback there from people was that this was just such an incredible film, that they really understood the nature of the biblical church in a broader context of history than they had understood before. So what was some of the feedback that you've received that maybe you didn't expect?
Yeah. I think that I wondered if some of the arguments were clear, and it was, sometimes you wonder, I hope that's clear enough, because it's not a classroom, right? It's a movie, and it moves like a movie. So if you're sitting down thinking you're going to, watch a commentary, a biblical commentary unfold before you, you're not going to get that experience. I'm a filmmaker. I make movies, so I'm telling a story, and I was wondering if that would be not appreciated, and maybe some people in the churches just wanted, just give me the biblical content and that's it. I don't need the story, but that's not the case. So I'm pleasantly surprised that people are appreciating the fact that, we cared about our art. I cared about the art of storytelling, visual storytelling, filmmaking, and how to, craft that story in the best way that is going to be good for a good experience for somebody to sit in a theater and watch. And people are really appreciating that. And at the same time, they're understanding the concepts. And that's just makes me, I'm so happy to see that happening. And I see it in other countries. We've seen it in South Africa. There was New Zealand. So it wasn't just the US, there's Canada. There's countries across the globe, actually, that were watching this around the same time we were, and we started to get that feedback, and it was just surreal, because I'm at our premiere with you, and I'm hearing this feedback, and I'm realizing, oh yeah, this is being played at all these churches at the same time, and the Lord in his kindness and his mercy sovereignly allowed me to be a part of that, and gave a task before me. And because I didn't try to make this happen, I wasn't, it was just an answer to prayer, and I see God's sovereign hand in it, and I'm in awe of it.
And I feel the same way about, my small role with this entire project, and having the opportunity to represent Pastor MacArthur and Grace Community Church in the lawsuit, which that story is in part what is told in this movie. And to see that piece of it in the broader context of the theology and the church history, you're right, it is storytelling, and it's in a way that that does move quickly, but really does teach you. So this isn't a sermon like what you would get on Sunday. It's a movie. And I think that that is going to speak to people who otherwise wouldn't necessarily go and sit in church on Sunday. They're going to have a view of what the Bible says about church, and why these pastors, including Pastor MacArthur, took this stand, and why we fought the legal battles. And I have been so blessed and so appreciative to be part of this story as well. And as you say, storytelling, one of my favorite memories of the production part of this, when you and Jacob Hoffman contacted me saying that this project was at its inception, and could I be part of it. So I came out to Los Angeles to film last year, and I remember you and I were driving together, and I survived that car ride, but you and I were driving together, a little behind the scenes, to this home that we filmed in, that was kind of like this living room. And I remember you telling me about this lady with a stool, and how this was going to be part of this story. And it was this woman that the same date of July 23rd back, several hundred years ago, then it was the same date that the elders released their statement. And I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, a stool? Really? And going this, and I did not see at all the vision that you did. And then when I saw the movie, I'm like, oh, that's the lady. I get it now. That's the stool. And it is so important. And so how did you even think of this in terms of, you get this project and you get to tell this story? How did that unfold, that all of these stories of church martyrs, and also of people who have come before, our moment in time stood firm and telling that whole story?
Yeah. So it started with our statement, Christ not Caesar. And in that statement, the elders referenced some historical moments to kind of bolster their point of view and say, we're not the first Christians to make this argument. These Christians in the past have made this argument too. And one of one of those historical group of Christians were the Scottish Covenanters. So then I just started reading everything on the Scottish Covenanters because I knew I wanted to make that a part of the story. And as I researched those stories, I just became excited as a filmmaker because I was like, oh man, these are going to be great stories to tell. I can't wait to sink my teeth into this and adapt this into a film. But you know, the story of Jenny Geddes and the stool, I did not know about until probably my 10th pre-interview with an elder, because I was doing pre-interviews and just trying to wrap my head around some things so I could, you know, ask the right questions and I could understand the story, so that I was asking the right questions so I could mold the story the way it could move. So I would understand where my first act would move and all that stuff. I don't want to bore your audience with all that story anatomy stuff. But so that's what I was doing. And Rich Harrisek, one of our elders, said, you know, I just think we're Jenny Geddes. That's who we are. We're Jenny Geddes, that lady who threw her chair. And I said, what are you talking about? And then he went on to tell this story about how Steve Lawson was preaching on, you know, the Covenanters. And one of the stories he told was Jenny Geddes. And he says, that's just like us. She throwing her chair just like us. And I said, that's fascinating. And then he said, I don't know, maybe I'm giving away too much for your viewers, but oh well.
Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yeah,
but that's
spoiler
okay.
alert. But July 23rd, that is the anniversary of the day that Jenny Geddes threw her chair. And I said, that is crazy because that is the same day that the elders voted to open the church back up and defy the government. And Jenny Geddes was taking a stand defying the government because the government was in her church, St. Giles in Edinburgh, telling her this is how worship has to be done from here on out. And and she picked up her chair and threw it at him. So I was excited about that. And that became a symbol to me about kind of what we did, that chair, that stool. And so I really lean into that because I got really excited about that. And as you saw, I opened the film with it. And
Yeah.
and
I saw that. I saw that as we were driving to my portion of the filming. That was what you were describing, and I didn't fully understand the weaving in of that story until I saw the screening of the production, and the way that you weave that in, and the history of the Covenanters, and stories of the faithful that have come before, and how Grace Community Church and Pastors Coates and Stevens from Canada, who are also part of this as well, how they were standing on firm ground in terms of the faithful who have come before to say, we are going to stand up when the state tries to tell the church how to worship and how to be the church. Then we are going to say, no, that is not your jurisdiction. And so seeing this in an even bigger context than what I was even thinking theologically in my conversations with Pastor MacArthur and the elders at the time of the lawsuit was so fascinating and so important in the understanding of why church is essential. And so take us kind of behind the scenes a little bit of what filming was like in taking all of these different pieces and putting together this story of what happened with our church, with Grace Community Church, also these pastors in Canada, but telling it in the broader context of church history.
Yeah, it was really important to me. And I pitched this to Dr. MacArthur and some of the elders that were there when I pitched it, that it's not about Grace Church. I mean, yes, we play a role in it, but it's really not just about us. We're just a part of it. The story is about the church. And I explained to them I wanted to convey that through church history as well as globally, which is represented through our Canadian brothers and sisters. So I wanted to do that. Now, how it was all going to work together, I didn't fully know exactly in detail, but I did write the script and I wrote the intro as it is in the film. Really, that turned out the same way, and it transitions the same way. And I bring it back at the end of the first act, just as I planned in the script. Now, lots of little things changed, but I had to write a script first to just to tell myself, okay, do I think I can do this? Because you weren't the only one who didn't see it, who didn't understand
Good.
that.
Good to know. It wasn't
Yeah.
just the blonde lawyer didn't get it. Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah. And I don't know if people fully got it until I actually put in the images and they could see it flow and go, oh, I understand. With the music, I see how this is going to work now. And everybody got really excited. But even I at times was like, uh-oh, what if this doesn't work? And I'll be honest with you, I was very much dealing with anxiety, probably around April, May of this year. I was very concerned. I was very concerned that I wasn't going to pull it off. And I was praying a lot. And did not get a lot of sleep because I would just stay up and lay in my bed and think about what's wrong with the film and how I was going to figure out how I'm going to fix it. And while I'm doing that, sweating bullets for like months, people at church are coming up to me and saying, oh, I can't wait. I can't wait till it comes out. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be so good. And I'm like, how do you know? I'm really doubting whether it's going to be good or not. And of course, I can't say that. So that just added to the pressure. But God, in his kindness and mercy, I would pray, Lord, help me find creatively how I can put this together so it's good and that it glorifies you and proclaims your fame throughout the world. And I would pray that all the time. And I think he answered that prayer.
Absolutely. I think he did as well, because I came away from seeing initially the screening, which wasn't the full edited complete version. It was, about a month ago, but mostly done. And I came away from that thinking, wow, what a clear presentation of the truth of the gospel of Christ and the essential church. And so well done on that, because exactly what you wanted. And I know Pastor MacArthur felt the same way. And in his view of the initial screening of the film, and then I got to sit with him in the theater, and then also at Grace Community Church on Sunday. And then at dinner afterwards, I remember walking in and he said, well, what did you think? And I loved it. And I think that was what everybody, if the anticipation was there, then I think we didn't even realize how great the delivery would be. So truly well done. It went beyond anything that I could have expected from, a documentary that's produced by a church. And, most of the time, unfortunately, a lot of Christian content, if it has overtly Christian themes, which is what this movie is, then it's not done as well as a movie that will keep your attention, be something you want to see in the theater. And this does all of that. I mean, I was so impressed. And so what, in terms of the storyboarding that you've talked about, the parts that talk about Jenny Geddes and, Paul Bunyan is part of this, and, and the Covenanters and some of these things, you have statues that kind of come to life a little bit that tell this story that was so unique in any film that I've ever seen. What was the thought behind that type of imagery?
Yeah, it really was an evolution, and it was driven by problem solving, going back to the sovereignty of God, just like taking things away from me to where I had no power over. And I'm like, well, okay, that takes away that choice. What choice do I have going in this direction? And I just have to adapt to, what is reality. And the reality is we don't have a lot of money and a lot of time. So I originally wanted to do live reenactments, but I wasn't going to do them cheesy. They were going to be very stylized. And I even came up with a way to problem solve the money thing. Is I was going to do this black space, which is what you saw in the film, this kind of black space with this cold light. And I wanted that and, reflective pools and things like that. I was going to do all that, but live, and just do it really stylized, slow motion. But then we realized, the amount of equipment that we would have to rent and the personnel, and it was going to cost way too much. So then I was forced to okay, I have to animate this. I cannot do this the way I was going to do it. How can I still accomplish the powerful visuals that I was picturing in my head and that I was storyboarding at the time? How can I still accomplish that in animation? And our motion graphics guy, Zach, he brought forth, he says, we could do 3D. Here's some statues, plaster of Paris type things, chiseled out of, whatever. And I was like, that might work. But then I had the idea, but what if we made it like they were coming from the grave? What if they looked like they were from the Greyfriars churchyard, that they could easily have been in there? Like, because you'll see statues and carvings of that old style, and it'll be really like, it'll have that patina and that moss on it, on the stone. And I was like, if I could get that, and then we could actually make it look like these stone things without them moving are still kind of moving. So we don't have to animate them, but we just move the camera around them, and we do different versions of the same statue. So they're doing actions that I need them to do, but they're not moving themselves. So we would sculpt in 3D animation these statues, make them look like they're from the grave. But we use what was called Unreal Engine, which is what is used in video games. And that allows like instant gratification for me as a director, because then you can put the camera in that space and I could say, okay, make the camera do this, pull it back, pan it over here, crane up. And just like if I was on set, I could just, command the camera to do what I want. And collaborating with Zach and working that out, we came up with some amazing shots. And I think, again, in God's sovereignty, he had a better plan. I think it came out better than probably what I was originally going to do. It works perfectly for the film. I love how I was able to introduce it in the actual graveyard, and we see the chair in the grave, and then she leaves the grave to go to church. I just love it. So I loved all that. Those are some of my favorite parts, and I'm so happy we were able to pull that off. And we did that all in-house. We did not shop that out to some 3D company or computer graphics company. We did that all ourselves. We did have a couple contracted workers because we had so many that we had to sculpt, but we would design them ourselves. We would draw them, and then we shipped it out to a guy in Brazil and a guy in Germany, and because they were cheaper, and they would sculpt these along with Zach, and then Zach would put the skin on them, and then we could put it in the black space and create everything around it that you saw, and it just came out beautifully.
It really did. It's so incredible. And I'm talking with the writer director of the Essential Church movie, Shannon Halliday, and the way that you're describing this for the people who haven't yet seen it, who are listening to this, I'm so excited for you to see this because the imagery is so powerful in telling these stories. And I think you're right that rather than animated in another way or with live actors reenactments, the fact that they look like gravestones in some ways makes the imagery more powerful, especially when you're telling the story of the two Margarets as well, and who were actually martyrs for their faith. And that was, to me, one of the most powerful moments. That was another story of church history in Scotland that I did not know. And to see that, that was one of several moments in the film that I was crying through the whole thing, just thinking this is such a powerful testament and testimony to why church polity and the essential church matters from a biblical perspective. And I don't think, and I don't know anything about movie production, but just from a movie viewer, I don't know that you would have gotten that same level of solemnity in any other way. And it was beautiful. And so, and I won't ruin the story of the two Margarets for the people who haven't yet seen it, but I can't wait. So turning to then the live interviews, and you sat down with me, some of the other attorneys, my co-counsel, and Pastor MacArthur, some of the other elders of Grace Community Church, the other pastors in Canada, their lawyer. So a lot of different pieces of the live interviews. And what was it like interviewing the church elders of Grace Community Church after the fact and kind of going back and reliving these moments of trauma, frankly, from the county and Gavin Newsom threatening jail time, and their decision making? There was a lot of that story I wasn't even aware of because I came on board as a lawyer after the fact. What was it like having these men tell their story?
Yeah, I was concerned about that part a lot because it was really my goal to not whitewash this and show Grace Church to be what it is. We are imperfect people. who make up the church. We're repentful believers, but we don't get everything right, and we have to work through things just like any other church. And sometimes I think many people look at Grace Community Church and just think that everything's tied in a nice little bow and we have our act together perfectly and we always make the right decision and everything's without drama. But that's not the case, especially during this COVID thing. The lockdowns really stretched us. And biblically, we had to really deal with Romans 13, and there were a lot of different views on that. Or at least two different views on that at the time. And the elders had to work that out. So going to the elders and saying, hey, will you be transparent about this and talk about it? I don't know if every single one of them was fully comfortable with that. But a few of them were like, oh, I get it. I see what you're trying to do. And I'm going to give you everything. And I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust that you're not going to put something up there that's going to make somebody look bad, because we want to protect everybody. We don't want to make those who disagreed with us in our own church look bad. And we didn't. I don't believe this movie does. We protected their identity. But I still needed that tension and that conflict within our own church. And we definitely had that. And Chris Hamilton really nailed it. He's our chair elder. And boy, he really, without him, I don't know if the documentary would be what it is, to be honest with you, because he had a really good memory about how things unfolded. And I stressed to him that I wanted him to give me all the details and tell it to me like a story. I said, don't leave anything out. I'll figure out what should be in there or not. But you just tell me the detailed story of all of it. And he did. All of the conflict, all of the tension, all the division within the elders. He laid that out, and that's in the film. So we had division in our elder board, and we had division in our church, because when we opened back up, many people left our church. So it was a messy thing. And going to our elders and talking to them about that sometimes was awkward. I was like, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to ask you questions that you probably didn't think I was going to ask. But God bless Chris Hamilton and a few others that actually just said, okay, I'm going to give you everything. And they did, and it made the film really great.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And Chris Hamilton was one that I got to know really well. He and his wife are very dear friends now. And, he was so instrumental well before I became involved. And that's part, there's a solid 30 minutes, I think, in the film, or, maybe 20, 30 minutes that talks about that tension, the history and life of Grace Community Church, the understanding of the state's obligation and to civil society, and the authority from God to restrain evil, and the acknowledgement of that. And I think you do tell that really well in how the church elders process through this. And I think it's really helpful for future instruction of churches that are elder led, and that are that they have the church in terms of its composition in the structure of the New Testament church, and having teaching elders and the elder board. So it's not just one head pastor that's making all the decisions and forcing that on the church. And to go through that in the history and life of Grace Community Church, I think will be so helpful in instruction of showing that, and showing, okay, this and as Chris Hamilton actually says in the film, and this was to me one of the best parts of it, was he says, before this decision to reopen, Romans 13 had a pretty simple application. You respect government, you pay your taxes, and you move along respecting the authority of the civil government. And now we're placed with this, how do we as a church move forward? And I remember when I received the statement from Grace Community Church, because my mom is actually a graduate of the Master's University, as you and I have talked about. But for those listening who aren't familiar with this part of it, I had a personal connection because my mom's a graduate of the Master's University. She was the one that sent me that statement. And when I read it, my first response, having known and of Grace Community Church, having listened for years to Pastor MacArthur, having one of his study Bibles, I thought, I can't believe that there's a moment in American history under our Constitution and our civil government that John MacArthur and Grace Community Church would actually have to exercise civil disobedience. And that was a moment of, this is a really big deal, the COVID shutdowns. I think that actually changed for me a perspective legally as well, seeing that statement. And so to know the fuller history that I wasn't aware of, with Chris Hamilton talking about it, with Pastor MacArthur, with some of the other elders, and their struggle through the theology and understanding of this, was really instrumental, and I think will be helpful in instruction in righteousness for future pastors and churches when the next thing happens. And so and there's so much more that I could ask you about, but in just the last 2 minutes I have with you, Shannon, what is the message then that you want pastors and churches to take away from this production being the essential church?
Yeah, I think I would love for churches to come out of this thinking, okay, government is not neutral, and I should not think of them as neutral. I need to understand that spiritual warfare is in all spheres, and I need to bring my Christian worldview and my discernment in that matter to all spheres, including the government sphere, in understanding what's going on, and to be not to second guess the government out of rebellion, but to test them, to go to your Bible and understand, what are they saying here? How does this line up? It makes no sense to me that people, I was just talking with somebody on Twitter today, and they said, you don't get to choose when you get to obey the government or not. The Bible just says obey it, and that's what it says. So you don't get to choose that. And I said, well, think about that. So if you're going to submit to your husband and he tells you to do something that goes against God's commands, are you to obey your husband? No, you're supposed to obey God and disobey your husband. So you would do the same thing with government. It doesn't change anything. And that's what we did. And they need to understand that. And I'm hoping that the film also puts steel in their veins. And that's why I wanted church history to be a part of it so much. And, all the cost that they paid to take a stand for something that some would say it's not that big of a deal. It's just the head of the church. It's just temporarily give the headship to the government. And there's no loophole in the Bible. We should never give the headship of the church to anybody other than to who it belongs to, which is Christ. And he's communicated in his word what he wants the church to do, and he's commanded us what to do. So, I hope that all of that, they take away all of that and they move forward knowing I need to be discerning in the future. And it's good for me to take a stand for the church. And here's the other thing I like that I'm realizing more and more is that when the church does what it's supposed to do and obeys Christ and is biblical, the world around it thrives. And because if you look at Alberta, those pastors took a stand. Well, their whole, what do they call them, provinces, whatever. Alberta is changed politically. All those people have been removed. And that is because the church took a stand. If the church didn't take the stand that it did and obey Jesus and made that public, like, hey, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to obey Jesus. That had ramifications throughout the entire community. And I know that's not why we do it, because we live in a temporary world, but it is a blessing to others if we do what we're supposed to do as the church. And we look at the Scottish Covenanters. They did what they were supposed to do all through the 1600s. I mean, that struggle lasted for 100 years. And then when the opportunity arrived in the New World to form a government, how did they form it? They formed it according to all of those ideas that they fleshed out over the 100 years before that through the Covenanters. And the Puritans with the Great Ejection, they had to flesh out these concepts, and they designed America around those concepts. That's a fruit of the church, really. America is the fruit of the church, even though I wouldn't call it a Christian nation, obviously, but good things happen when the church does what it's supposed to do and human beings thrive. So
yes, so well said.
Yeah. So that's what I hope people think about when they see this film.
Yeah, and absolutely, I think that this will solidify and educate Christians in the proper role of the church, because for too long the church in America has really abdicated its role of helping civil society be moral and upright and have the measurable difference between right and wrong, good and evil, and restraining evil and promoting freedom and liberty in the morally proper sense. And we've abdicated that too much to the civil government and to those elected officials that most of the time are not Christian. And so they're making this determination based on a secular theology or a secular premise and worldview. And the church can't just be a social club, it has to be the church. And this film really defines the true nature of what is the church and then why it is essential in such a brilliant way, and is truthful about the theology. And so for the Christian watching this movie, I think it's going to challenge your perception of the church and its role in the Christian life and in the life of civil society and its relationship to government and the state. And then for your friends who maybe aren't Christians, but they are conservatives or they care about politics, even invite the liberals and the Democrats too, because they'll be challenged. But for the people who maybe aren't fully Christians, I think this is also going to challenge them to understand not only the truth of the gospel of Christ, which is the foundation, but also why we advocate for a moral and upright society. And so for anyone, wherever you're at, I know that this movie is going to challenge some preconceptions that you might have had. I know it challenged me as the attorney going through it. It challenged the elder board going through this as well, and the life of the church. And we need to be prepared for the next thing. And that's what I'm really going to take away from this film, Shannon, is to be even better prepared the next time that the state tries to encroach on the jurisdiction and the province of the church. I'm going to be even more resolute to stand firm and say, no, Christ is the head of the church, period. So thank you for this film. And where can people see this? And what would you encourage them where they can go this weekend as it opens in theaters? So exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. So the website is essentialchurchmovie.com, essentialchurchmovie.com. And that's basically the hub for all the information that you need. You can go there and there's a button to click on for purchase tickets. And that takes you to a list of theaters that are available, and they're across the U.S. So we're not in every city, but you can look up the closest. You can put your zip code in and look up the closest theaters to you. And hopefully there's one in your city. We keep adding more and more every day. I forget the exact number that we have, but a lot of the major cities have the film. Actually, there's a theater that I usually go to by my house that I walk to go see films, and my film's going to be there. It's going to be surreal. So I'm going to walk over there, like right next to Oppenheimer. There'll be the Essential Church, and then I'll watch the Essential Church. So Amazing. It'll be in theaters everywhere. You just got to go. You can also go on apps like Fandango and put in your zip code and see if it's near you. But just go to essentialchurchmovie.com. It opens July 28th. I don't know how long the run will be, but if a lot of people go the first weekend, the run will continue because the theaters will want it. And this is a great movie to bring all sorts of people to it, like you were just saying, people that don't agree with it. Bring friends from other churches who maybe they don't even care about the subject matter. They don't know why they should care. I think they'll get a lot out of this film. Unbelievers will get a lot out of this film. It has the gospel in it, a clear presentation of the gospel. So if you want to bring somebody, if you're a Christian and you want to bring somebody that you've been wanting to evangelize to, this is a great opportunity to springboard off of this film because it has a clear presentation of the gospel. So it really is. I was just talking with somebody on Twitter today and they're against the film. And I started engaging them and they thanked me for engaging them. And they said, you know what, I'm going to go see the film. And I said, good, you should go see it. Even though you don't agree with it, go see it and be challenged. I watch documentaries all the time that I don't have the point of view of the director, and I don't mind being challenged in that way. And others should be afraid of being challenged by this film as well. So yeah, essentialchurchmovie.com, July 28th, opens everywhere.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait to see it again in the theater. It was so great to be there at the premiere in Los Angeles, but to go to, close to my home as well. And, and I was just seeing the, Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie are the big ones now. And then thinking, and yet the Essential Church is going to be right next to them. And the more that people go and see it, it's going to be incredible. And I think that momentum will build. And then, and so I really, really would encourage everyone listening, like Shannon said, whether you agree with it, you don't, you have no idea, you will definitely be happy that you saw it regardless. And you can help get this in front of other people. The more people that go opening weekend, then we'll just continue to expand. So Shannon, thank you so much for your willingness to take on this project, for a wonderful film. And, I think it should be Best Picture, but I doubt the Academy is going to agree with us. So, not looking like I'm going to come back to, for the Oscars anytime soon. But if that happens, then I will be the first to congratulate you. And I think you should. So, maybe we'll have like a private presentation of, an Oscar that's like one of the other statues or something in the film.
We'll have our own Oscar party.
Yeah, that'd be great. But it was such a pleasure to work with you, and I can't wait to see what you do next. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me on it. You were a great part of this film. We couldn't have done it without you. You helped our church considerably. The Lord brought you in his sovereignty, and it was a blessing to have you a part of this project. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks so much.
With inflation, the banking world collapse, and everything that Joe Biden is doing not to protect America, you need to make sure to secure your financial health, especially in retirement. And hey, if you're a millennial like me, that actually is sooner than you think. You need to start now, even if you are a millennial or a Gen Zer, to make sure that your financial health is actually healthy when we get to retirement. And Legacy Precious Metals has a revolutionary new online platform that allows you to invest in gold and silver online in real time. In a few easy steps, you can open an account online, select your metals of choice, and choose to have them stored in a vault or shipped right to your door. You'll have access to a dashboard where you can track your portfolio growth in real time anytime. You'll see transparent pricing on each coin and bar, and this puts you in complete control of your money. The platform is free to sign up for. Visit legacypminvestments.com and open your account and see this new investing platform for yourself. Gold hedges against inflation and against a volatile stock market. A truly diversified portfolio isn't just more stocks and bonds, but different asset classes. This brand new platform allows you to make investments in gold and silver, no matter how small or large, with just a few clicks. Visit legacypm.com to get started. You can download the free investor's guide, and you can also call Legacy PM Investments to talk to a portfolio expert to get expert answers to to customize your personal portfolio. So visit legacypminvestments.com to get started. Tell them that Jenna sent you.
When the government used emergency edicts during COVID to restrict the gathering and worship of churches, 3 pastors facing the risk of imprisonment, unlimited fines, and their own churches being ripped apart take a courageous stand and reopen their doors in the face of a world that has chosen to comply. The Essential Church is a feature-length documentary that explores the struggle between the church and the government throughout history. This story uncovers those who have sacrificed their lives throughout history for what they believe in. Rediscover why the church is essential and how we prove that this stand remains true from a scientific, legal, and most importantly, biblical perspective. This is not your typical movie. It will change your life. You need to take your friends and family and go see this film. It comes out in theaters this Friday, July 28th. Get your tickets now and go to essentialchurchmovie.com to get your tickets today. That's essentialchurchmovie.com. On MyPillow's 20-year anniversary with over 80 million MyPillow sold, Mike Lindell wants to thank each and every one of you by giving you the lowest price in history on his MyPillows. You will receive a queen-size MyPillow for only $19.98. The regular price is $69.98 and just $10 more for a king size. You'll receive deep discounts on all MyPillow products such as bed sheets, mattress toppers, pet beds, mattresses, my slippers, which I love, and so much more. This is the time to try out some of the amazing products you've had your eye on from MyPillow. So go to mypillow.com and enter promo code Jenna to receive this amazing offer on the queen size MyPillow for $19.98. You can go to mypillow.com or call 1-800-564-8475. Be sure to use the promo code Jenna. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. This offer comes with a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. It's time to start getting the quality sleep you deserve. Go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Jenna.